Good afternoon, sports fans. Welcome to the next episode in the Yanuska Guide Talks. I'm your host, Shaun King, coming to you from beautiful sunny Canmore, Alberta. I know some of you that may be coming in from BC, you've already been experiencing very warm temperatures out there. High 20s, even close to 30 degrees, I've heard. Apparently Skaha is going to be open this weekend. I can imagine things are going to be pretty crazy out there. We haven't had quite as warm temperatures here. It was 0 degrees when I woke up this morning in Canmore. But this has been the first day that we've actually been able to see the mountaintops, and the sun was shining, and we've had some new snow over the past few days. So if you've been sort of, wasting away in Quarantineville like I have been, you've maybe been sort of thinking that, gosh, it would be neat to get up there and do some skiing. Certainly the conditions look like they're pretty good with the new snow that we've got up in the Rockies. And yet we can't go skiing, so we're going to do the next best thing, which is to talk about planning for a ski tour. And so I, probably like you, a lot of you have been, watching lots of YouTube videos or whatever these times, and thinking, okay, well, I've got, a self-proclaimed subject matter expert here that's going to be, educating me about something. And I often ask myself, well, why should I listen to this person? What's their background? What's their story? So for those of you that don't know me, I thought I would just kind of introduce myself a little bit. I have initially from Ontario, moved out to British Columbia to go to school, fell in love with the mountains. I've been recreating out in the mountains here now for almost 30 years. I've been a member of my Guides Association for 22 years, and I am a internationally certified mountain guide, working here at Yanuska, one of the core guides, and it's a great place to work. Really been enjoying my time here. I am an adventurer. I've worked at heli ski and cat ski companies in BC and in Japan, and I've been to a lot of the backcountry lodges that the West is famous for. I've done a lot of the big ski traverses out here, and I definitely love adventuring. People will often ask, what's the best lodge you've been to, or what's the best ski touring destination? And I always say it's the one I haven't been to yet, because for me, I may have had the most amazing day doing something fantastic in a particular location, but if I have the choice to going back to that same place and having that same amazing day over again, or going someplace I haven't been to before, I'm always going to pick the new place. I'm always about exploring, because that place may be even cooler, even better. I am also an author and editor. I lived in the Nelson area for about 5 years, and while I was out there, I helped put together ski touring maps for the Roslyn Range and Kootenay Pass, and the Whitewater ski area, sort of off-piste stuff around the area, and most recently the Kokanee Glacier Provincial Park. This also has a bunch of mountaineering and scrambling descriptions in there. And I've authored a guidebook, the Lake Louise Sunshine Banff Area Ski Tours guidebook. And I'm also the editor for the Association of Canadian Mountain Guides biannual publication called the Arret. So I do lots of writing, and I love my job. I feel very fortunate to do what I do, and I love to share the knowledge I have and my experiences with people. So today we are going to be taking a look at what to bring with you on a day of ski touring and how to pack that gear. And you might be asking yourself, why is that really worthy of an entire episode of Guide Talks here, to be able to explain that? And I would say it basically boils down to efficiency. So when we're in the mountains, efficiency is key. You may have heard before that speed is safety in the mountains. And in order for us to have that speed, which is important for a number of reasons, you might be looking at shorter days around December, January, and if you're not quick and efficient moving through your objective, you may end up being benighted, or at least having to come home in the dark, which is never a pleasant experience. In the springtime, you might be trying to get your objective done before the sun heats things up and avalanche conditions deteriorate. you could just have a very big day plan. You know, some of these monster days that we do in Rogers Pass or the Rockies might be a lot of vertical. You may just need to kind of move quickly to be able to kind of get everything done. And so speed comes in a couple of forms when it comes to packing. If your pack is too heavy, if you've brought more stuff than you really need to have with you, that slows you down. Certainly on the way up, it throws your weight off on the way down. And if you also have more stuff than you need and your pack isn't really packed properly, you end up wasting a lot of time trying to find things and being inefficient at transitions. So that really is why it's so important to be thinking about all these things. So now, as I go here, I'm going to be talking about the Patagonia Ascensionist 40-liter pack, which is Patagonia is one of the partners here at Januska, and they provide these packs for us that work here. You can see the beautiful Januska Mountain Adventures logo on the side there. You'll notice this pack, it's fairly minimalist, which I have to say initially I was a bit torn. I am one of those people that can spend hours in MEC, kind of oogling over different pack designs and different features, and I like functionality. I like form and functionality. This came across to me initially as being a pretty minimalist pack, and I thought, is it going to really sort of fulfill all the needs that I have? And in the end, I quite enjoy the fact that it's as svelte and as lightweight as it is. It has just the right amount of functionality. There are a few things that it'd be nice to sort of see, but generally I'm quite impressed with this pack. And you will notice that the way it's packed, I've got everything that I need here right now for a day of ski touring, a day of guiding, where I would be carrying all of the group safety equipment. And to give you an idea, I've weighed this actually. It's about 20 pounds, what I've got in here. And I'm going to open it up and you'll be able to see everything that's inside here. But one thing you'll notice is that it's quite streamlined. And what I mean by that is that I don't have anything on the outside of the pack. So I do see often people will have probes or shovel handles or blades, things strapped to the outside of their pack. And there are some issues with that. If you have your avalanche safety gear strapped to the outside of your pack, when you're skiing through trees, they may end up getting ripped off from tree branches. If you were to get caught in an avalanche and you had your shovel ripped off of your pack, maybe you're not buried, but maybe your partner is. Now you're lacking the necessary rescue equipment to be able to dig your partner up. So very important that we keep that stuff on the inside of the pack. I often see two people will have a water bottle on the outside of their pack, and fair enough, they're thinking, I want to stay hydrated, I want to have easy access to my water bottle. But if you've got a liter of water that weighs a kilogram, so if you've got a kilogram water bottle strapped to the outside of your pack, it's swinging around as you're moving, as you're skiing, throwing your balance off. Talk a little louder. And so I really try to prevent having anything on the outside of my pack. The one thing that I do have on the outside of here is a watch, which is a fairly small thing. It does dangle around a little bit, but this is actually a bit of a trick that I picked up from Barry Blanchard, one of our core guides that gave a guides talk here. He was one of the first speakers a few weeks ago. And Barry always had a watch strapped on the outside of his pack. And initially I thought it was kind of a bit geeky. But I've come to realize that this watch that used to be on my wrist was hard to get at with glove gauntlets and numerous layers over top of my wrist. It was a bit of a hassle. Often the buttons would end up getting pressed, and my phone that I might have in my pocket, again, it's a bit awkward to get at, and quite often I want to just be able to see what the time is at a quick glance. And so I found that just by having the watch on the outside of the pack enables me to very quickly and easily have a look at what the time is, and that's been pretty nice. So now I will also say that it's important that your pack fit quite nice and tightly into your back. Again, if you've got a large pack that isn't packed well and doesn't sit well on your body, it's going to throw your body off, particularly when you're skiing down. So this fits quite nice and svelte against my back. It is a 40-liter pack, which I find is about the minimum that I need for guiding when I'm ski touring, to carry everything that I need. For recreationalists that are going to be dividing up their group safety gear, I think a 30-liter pack can be fine if you're dividing up that gear. And really anything probably smaller than about 25, unless someone else is carrying the majority of the gear in the group. 25 liters is probably getting a bit small, certainly anything smaller than that, and I think you're going to find you're going to have a hard time getting what you need inside your pack. If you have a small pack and you can't get everything inside, the tendency is for you to start strapping things on the outside, and I've already addressed the problems with that. So this has a little pocket at the hip belt here, which I find great for easy access to certain items. And so what I keep in here is I've got a little Leatherman juice that has it's got a little pair of scissors in it, a knife, a little pair of pliers, and I can do quite a lot with this. It's not very big, it's not very heavy, but it's got the minimal essentials that I need. I also keep a ski scraper, which I find really important as well, because often the bases of the skis get iced up, and being able to even just pass this around the group and have other people take care of any ice that's built up on the bottom of the skis makes a huge difference. So I highly recommend carrying that. This is actually, it's not even necessarily a designated ski scraper. It's just it's a skin trimming tool from Black Diamond that I've ripped the little tool part off and just use as a lightweight piece of plastic basically to scrape the skis with. I also carry a ruche block cord in my pocket here, and this is handy not only for cutting ruche blocks in the snow, but also for doing extended column tests, and for as one of the cords for hauling my toboggan system as well, that we'll take a look at later. It would be nice, I think, to have a second compartment on the side here. I would carry lip balm and sunscreen in it. But let's take a look at what we have here in the top of the pack. So the top lid needs to have the smaller items that will get lost in the main compartment, as well as the items that you want to have access to pretty quickly. And that is a big part of efficiency, to be able to just swap out sunglasses for goggles, or put on sunscreen, or have access to a ski strap, or those sorts of items. Very key that I'm not having to open up the entire compartment to be able to get down and rummage around through everything inside. So in here I have my sunglasses. These are from Julbo, who's also a partner of us here at Patagonia. And the nice thing I actually like about this particular case is that it is hard enough to protect the lenses, and yet when my sunglasses are out of this, the case squishes down quite nicely. There are some larger boxy shaped holders for sunglasses, and they end up taking up half of the space that I've got to be able to put things. So I quite like that small compact design. I also have in here what I call my ditty bag, and these are basically the things that if I did have another pocket like this at my hip, I would put these things inside there. But what I keep in here basically is my lip balm that has an SPF into it, and this is just a little an old Dristan bottle, I think, that I cleaned out and I use now for sunscreen. So again, we're trying to keep things light. If I'm carrying around half-liter bottle of sunscreen, basically, that's a lot of extra space and weight that I don't need to carry. So I just refill this a few times throughout the course of the season. I have in here also a headlamp, And the lightweight headlamps nowadays that you can get, there's no reason not to keep this in your pack all year round, basically. Summer and winter, I've got one of these. And then I've got some toilet paper in here for obvious reasons, a little lighter, and I have another plastic bag I keep in here. If it's too windy to be able to burn the toilet paper, I can put it in that other plastic bag to pack it out with me. So those are the things that I keep in my ditty bag. I also in here have an extra pair of thin gloves. I usually carry 3 pairs of gloves with me. I'll have my main pair that I'm using for ski touring. I'll have a backup pair inside my pack, and then I'll have a small dexterous pair like this. The nice thing about these is that they've got sensors on the fingers to be able to use my phone for navigating. I carry a balaclava with me, which is not something that I use all the time, but it's such a small, lightweight thing. If we have an injury, or even if we've got just very windy, cold conditions out there, you lose the bulk of your heat from your body out of your head and your armpits and your crotch. And so those other areas are pretty easily taken care of by most clothing, but the head area in particular, if you can have a tight-fitting balaclava, that will trap so much heat in that this is worth its weight in gold to be able to keep that heat inside. I also carry a buff that just can cover the bottom part of my face, so that I can have this if someone was injured or cold and I needed to give them a balaclava. So I carry those things. I always carry a little ball cap. This is the ACMG trucker cap here. And the reason that I carry this, even though it's a winter, is you sometimes will have up tracks where you've got a little bit of kind of moist precipitation coming down, or you've got warmer temperatures, and having a hood on your these are actually pretty sweet goggles because they have a lifter that enables the lens to separate away from the rest of the body and provide a bit of ventilation. So you can actually up track with these if you needed to, and they're not going to get all sort of sweaty and foggy. But so I mentioned already that I've got a case for both of these. One thing that this pack doesn't have that I've had in other packs that I quite enjoy is an insulated, it's not insulated, but a fleece goggle pouch, eyewear pouch. And by having that pouch, I always have something protecting my eyes. I'm always either wearing my sunglasses or my goggles. And I carry these with me regardless of the forecast, because you never know when it's going to snow. You never know when you're going to be, usually I'm not using goggles to up track. I want glasses for that. And I always, even if it's quite overcast, there's enough reflection and enough UV light coming through the thin clouds that I want to protect my eyes. So with a fleece-lined goggle pouch, I don't need the cases. I will either have my goggles in that fleece-lined goggle pouch and then my sunglasses on my face, and if I need to switch them and start snowing, I can take these out of there, put my glasses back in. That also saves me time in dealing with cases, and they're protected well inside that case. So that pouch rather. So I quite like that feature. What else have we got in here? I always carry a ski strap with me. Often it's a Velcro strap, but if I think that I'm going to be carrying my skis on my back quite often, for boot packing, for example, quite often it ends up being an A-frame that I'm looking at, and I want to be able to have some room for my feet. So I want the tails of the skis away from my feet and the tips close together, and the ski strap enables me to do that. This also comes in very handy for a number of other purposes, and I'll get to those when we take a look at the repair kit. Now, we need some kind of way of communicating with the outside world. This is a super important thing. There needs to be some sort of communication device in the group. Ideally, more than one. so that if the person who's got the communication device were buried in an avalanche, say, someone else can still communicate with the outside world. Now, in places like the off-piste locations at the ski hills, places like Sunshine and Lake Louise, Whistler, you've got cell communication, and so it's as easy as just being able to use your cell for that communication. In places that don't have cell service, we are looking at either, guides will carry a VHF radio, so very high frequency. We've got specific parks frequencies that we can use to contact them in the event of emergency, but those frequencies are not to be used by the general public. And so for recreationalists, you may find an FRS radio, good for communicating certainly within people in the group if you've got a couple of those radios. And also, you may, if you're in an area that has enough other people, you may be able to pick up someone else on an FRS radio and communicate with them. But in areas where you don't have that kind of population, you definitely want to be looking at some sort of satellite communication device. And the InReach Mini is 100 grams. This thing is so small and so light, you can text with it. And so you can get very detailed information out, but at the same time, it just has a simple SOS button on it. So I sometimes will give this to guests and tell them if something happens to me, just push the SOS button, and then at least someone knows where we are and that we're in trouble, that we're in need of rescue. I carry a logbook with me that has a pencil and a thermometer. And the thermometer obviously is to keep track of fluctuations in the temperature. Mainly, I sort of want to see how quickly temperatures may be increasing, or just to kind of give me an idea to monitor conditions. And the logbook has emergency phone numbers, cheat sheets for first aid, and spinal processes. A bunch of different information in there that I have access to, and a place for me to kind of record information. The other thing that I have to say I don't often carry with me, nowadays I do most of my navigating with my navigation phone app, and again here at Yamnuska we're partnered with Gaia. Gaia GPS has an excellent online it's a phone application for navigating that you can download the images on your phone, and so you don't need to have cell reception to be able to still navigate with them. And there's a built-in compass as well. I've actually got a couple of different navigation apps that I use, so my phone ends up being my main navigation tool. It used to be a handheld GPS, now it's the phone. And if you were particularly dealing with colder temperatures, or you have an older phone that the battery doesn't last very long, or you feel that there's a possibility that the battery could go on you and you need it to either navigate with or to be able to communicate with outside help, it's a great idea to carry along a little battery charger. And if you were listening to Pat Delaney talk last week, he was discussing his lost boot incident up on Cascade Falls, where he fortunately, despite the fact that his battery was dead on his phone, he did have a charger with him and was able to get just enough juice to be able to communicate with parks and effect a rescue. So that's something to think about there. If you do think you're going to be in a situation where you're going to be looking at whiteout conditions, then absolutely having a compass is fantastic to be able to figure out what the bearing is that you think you're going to have to follow, and have that around your neck, and be able to walk, perhaps roped up on a glacier, and be able to make sure that you're following that compass bearing, or better yet, have someone at the back of the group that can keep you online with the compass bearing. So that's what I keep in the top of the pack. Seems like a lot of stuff, but again, things are small and compact, and I pack it well, so it all fits in there pretty nicely. And now this pack, it's a bit unconventional in the way that it opens. Barry Blanchard calls this a sphincter opening. I'm not too sure if he just came up with that or if that's a thing, but So there's the sphincter opening up like that. So just a simple drawstring. And I like this because it's very quick for me to get in here. Basically, boom, I have quick, easy access to the pack. One of my big complaints about a lot of backpacks is that they will have this drawstring. In fact, they'll often have 2 drawstrings inside the pack. Now, the idea is that the 2 drawstrings enable you to have 2 different volumes that you're cinching up. But when I see people having to open 2 Fast X buckles and then pull open 2 drawstrings just to get in their pack, and then reverse all that again when they're closing the pack up, again, that's an efficiency thing. It just seems, especially with gloves on or mitts maybe perhaps, it seems like a lot of excess stuff that you don't really need to deal with. And so if you have that type of backpack, I would recommend just using one of the cinch cords, not both. And I don't even quite often see the need to use the little Fast X slider or whatever to sort of cinch and close that down. I would pull it tight and buckle it up. And the snow's not going to get in, and that's going to be a quick and easy way to access your stuff. So this pack opens up like that. I can put a rope for glacial travel just underneath the pack lid here and strap it down, and it holds it very well. If I need more security to keep the rope from flopping around, I can put it inside the compression straps on the sides here, and then I can have the sides of the rope held in place. The rope I can open it up, the top will flop over like this. I have access to my stuff. When I'm done, I stitch this up, bring the body of the rope back in again, put it in, and everything stays together quite nice and cleanly. So inside the main body of the pack, I want to be thinking about the order that I have packed things. So stuff that I want to have quick and easy access to is at the top. The things that I don't need the access to are at the bottom. So I've got my lunch at the top here. That's, if 20 pounds seem like a lot to you, it's because I've got about 3.5 pounds of just sort of food and water in here. And an extra jacket. So this is the jacket that I myself will put on when I'm cold. It could be down, whatever you sort of need to make sure that you're going to stay warm when you're stopped for a break, for example. I've got my helmet inside here, and I always take advantage of the empty space inside the helmet to either put my lunch, if it's something that I don't want to break, it's protected better inside there. In this case, I have, I call this my guest layer or my emergency layer. So this is an additional puffy insulated layer that I could put on someone if they get injured. And in particular, as temperatures get colder, you really want to be thinking about having enough clothing amongst the group to be able to deal with an injury if someone is cold, having to be laying down on the snow surface there for an extended period of time while help comes. I wanted to talk a bit about hydration here. First of all, you'll notice that this pack has a zipper at the side that makes it pretty darn easy for me to be able to get at my thermos. So remember I was mentioning earlier that some people want to have a 1 liter Nalgene bottle or something like that strapped to the outside of the pack so they have easy access to their hydration system. Well, I think it is important to be able to get at your liquids to be able to drink quick and easy. And this is one of the great things about this pack is that I have quick and easy access to drinks. Now, I have been primarily using a thermos. This is a half-liter thermos. I always put hot tea in here, and then when I go to take a drink, I'll always scoop some snow, fill the cup up with snow, and then put the hot liquids into this to melt the snow. And I find that I end up getting another couple hundred milliliters of total fluids out of just this half-liter bottle because it's hot and I'm making the fluids, I'm making the snow melt in there basically. Although I gotta say, when I was living in Nelson, we have much more temperate climates there, and I was actually going with a bladder system when I lived there, and I want to talk about that a little bit. So now I know there are some guides and even some recreationalists perhaps that may disagree with me entirely on the bladder system. And my experience is usually that the people that have that idea that a bladder just doesn't work in the winter, they're probably used to colder conditions where they see that the bladders are freezing up, the hoses are freezing up, the bite valves are freezing up. And I would agree that temperatures, minus 15 and colder, I don't think there's any point in trying to get away with a bladder system. If you have temperatures in the minus 10 to minus 15 range, it can work, but you need to be very disciplined. And things like having, this is actually the Hydra Pack sort of winter version, I suppose, that has an insulated package or an insulated bladder that the water goes into. I will put hot water into this, not boiling, but quite hot water into here to start. I find that's key. And then this has an insulated drinking tube. There are also insulation sleeves that you can put a regular tube inside of. This one has a built-in pocket that you can slide a little chemical hand warmer into, and then that heat helps the nozzle from freezing up. And you may also have a built-in insulated compartment like this BCA Stash. This is the Stash 40 pack, and this has zippered insulated compartments that enable you to put your hose, run your hose through here. And this can also be a way to sort of keep them from freezing. Now, in addition to having all this insulation, you need to make sure that you're drinking relatively frequently, because whatever water comes into the hose is not being kept warm by the main reservoir of hot water inside the back. And so you need to be drawing hot water out of there, every probably 15, 20 minutes, really, even if it's just a little bit, to try and kind of maintain that flow. And if you are blowing the water back in to try and kind of keep it from being in the tube, I find that you basically need to not only blow that water back in, but then also after you've done that, open up squeeze the valve, and you can see there's a bit of fluid in there already. So, whatever's in there, just sort of shake that out, get it out so that there's nothing inside the tube. So, those are two different techniques for sort of dealing with the water potentially freezing inside the tube. But like I say, you need to be very disciplined in that kind of minus, 10 range. In the 0 to minus 5 range or whatever, I find it's actually, this is a preferable, especially if it's big days I'm going through a lot of fluids. I find that I stay hydrated better with a drinking system. A bladder like this enables me to just, sip continuously on the go. I don't have to take my pack off, and especially with a lot of big trail breaking and deep, heavy snow like we get in the interior BC, this was my go-to when I was living in Nelson. So I just wanted to sort of address some of those questions that people often have about drinking systems. So moving right along, I mentioned I've got an extra pair of gloves that I always carry with me. If you dropped a glove, it got blown off of a mountaintop or down a crevasse or something, you would be hurting for certain. So having an extra pair of gloves, even if they just get wet from touching snow or whatever, I find this quite key. So an extra pair of good insulated gloves like that I always carry with me. And if you have someone who's injured, they're probably going to be sitting down or laying down. They're on that cold snow surface. You're going to use packs as best you can to try and kind of keep people off there, but it can be tricky with packs and the shape of packs and the size of packs, especially small packs, and the stuff that's in them, and then where do you put that if someone's on top of the pack for transport, say. And so I have really, Matt Reynolds, I'm going to give credit to this, he was the one that kind of first got me on the idea of carrying an inflatable mattress with you in the winter. And this is really, doesn't weigh very much, quite small. In particular, what I'm using here is the Thermarest Neil Light, I think it's called, or Neil, and it is a full-length Thermarest, but it's just a case. There's no insulation in it. I do have the insulated version of this, but it's bigger and heavier, and I feel that this does what it needs to. So by inflating this, I get about that much aloft, which is incredible, the difference that it makes to be able to keep an injured person, or just a cold person even, up off of the ground. I actually was in the unfortunate situation myself. I carried this thing around with me for years, and found myself with a broken leg in Japan a number of years ago, and I ended up being the one that had to be, in Japan they don't have helicopters that just fly in with long lines like we have the wardens here in the national parks. Out there it's basically firefighters on snowshoes, and they're often not going to be able to come to your location. And so despite the fact that I was in a spot that would have taken me probably about a minute to ski out, we were in thigh-deep snow in Japan, and I was with a bunch of snowboarders, and so they had to drag me, wading in the snow, and I was so glad to have been lying on my insulated pad, because it took 4 hours to do what would have been about a minute ski, to drag me that whole duration to kind of get out there and get to safety. And I didn't suffer any hypothermia from that injury, but I feel like I would have had it not been for this. So this has saved my bacon, and it's something that I really highly recommend. And like I say, I carry all this stuff with me personally in my own pack, but you may have several individuals in your group that you can spread things out, and different people can carry different things. So, but again, pretty small, lightweight thing, really. And the other thing that is quite crucial, there needs to be 2 things really that you should have in your group. You should have some sort of shelter, some sort of tarp that you can use to put over top of the group, to just kind of get out of the elements or wrap someone up if they're injured or cold. And you also need to have some sort of improvised toboggan, some kind of emergency evacuation system. I used to have my own system that was basically just a ski pole that I had sort of ripped in half and used hose clamps, and then I had a couple sections of that. I could attach skis at the tip and tail and use poles and a cross and lash everything together. And then I had another piece of fabric that kind of went over in between the skis to keep snow from kind of coming up. And then you could lay someone on top of that whole scenario and drag them. But it's a lot of moving parts. If you lose those in the snow, the whole thing doesn't work. It takes a while to put it all together. And with already cold hands and someone potentially looking at serious injuries, I wanted something faster and easier to deal with. And I ended up getting myself a 2-in-1. So this is, and big shout out to Neil Warren, who is the owner of Alpine Threadworks in Calgary. He makes these. This is a combo tarp evacuation sled system. And it's quite huge. It has very lightweight material used in it, but it also has a, maybe I'll open it up and show you. So it comes with some ladder lock straps to be able to sort of secure the person in. And you can see it's got quite durable material in the middle. Just hold the end of this one. I just called one of the guys from the side here. Thank you very much. Okay, so you see how wide this thing is and how long it is. It's definitely longer than a pair of skis, and so you're able to actually lay a pair of skis down inside this, and this material here is more durable for rubbing against snow surfaces that may have rocks or sticks poking out of it. And this is a light sill tarp material that makes it, just makes the whole thing lighter, more packable. And you'll notice, just stretch the Velcro out there, you'll notice that there is Velcro all the way along on both sides. And so you can use that Velcro to make either a sort of a teepee, like an A-frame style shelter. So if we go like this, you could run a rope between trees and you could just sort of put it over top like that, or you could have a couple pairs of skis that come together like this at each end, and then you put the Velcro together and it goes over top of the skis, and you can very comfortably seat 3-4 people underneath this thing in that style. You can see on this side too that these are the attachment points for being able to lash someone in. So you can have really good support in a cross, over the chest area, and then over the hips, and then one over the feet. And you can have someone very secured inside the whole thing, and then it makes it very easy to transport them. Not that you're going to be lugging someone for kilometers in this thing, but quite often people get injured in places that are not ideal to be able to access for a helicopter, for example. So even if it's just you need to get someone off of a steep hill, being able to wrap them up in something like this and drag them to a place where a helicopter can then get in, it's fantastic for that. And I have to say, I actually have not had to use this particular tarp myself, but another tarp that I had before this one, it was in the summer. We were going to climb Mount Hector off the Icefields Parkway in the Rockies here, and we were 2 guides and 12 guests, and we were up onto the glacier, and the summit was in striking distance. It didn't seem like it was going to take us that much longer to get to the top, but we could see weather coming in, and the skies had just totally turned black to the west where the weather was coming from. And I could see how nasty the weather looked. I could see how quickly it was moving. And I thought we could turn tail here and just get off the glacier and get out of the way and keep from getting totally soaking wet and not get our summit. Or we can try and just huddle underneath our guides' tarps and wait out. These storms, when they come in, these cold fronts will hit very fast. They'll usually last for maybe 20 minutes or so, and then they'll go fairly quickly as well. And so myself and the other guide pulled our tarps out. We were able to get, yes, I do remember getting 7 of us underneath each tarp. And it was, definitely not COVID distancing, that's for sure. But we all were able to just huddle underneath there. It's crazy how warm it is underneath this thing. It's sort of like being in a plastic bag. It doesn't breathe that well, which is a good thing. So it keeps the wind off of you. It kept us dry, it kept us warm, and we were able to wait out this system, and then we were able to continue on to the summit afterwards. And the skies opened up, and we got to we got to summit. So I think it's great to have that sort of thing with you. And then I also have my first aid kit and my repair kit that I carry with me. So the first aid kit I find very important to have. It's recognizable as a first aid kit. It's red. It's got an X on it, a cross on it. And in here I've got not the kitchen sink. What I'm gonna need, but yet what's gonna be light enough to carry. So Band-Aids, moleskin, steri strips, Tegaderm, a pocket mask, gloves, athletic tape, triangulars, gauze wraps, medications, that sort of thing. And I also have my repair kit, which again, it says repair kit on it, so if someone needed to find that out of my pack, they could. And I keep some ski straps in there, And these are mainly if you're in a situation where somebody's skins are not sticking to their skis in very cold temperatures, you can use these to help the skins from coming off the skis. And they have been lifesavers. Duct tape doesn't really work because the edges will just cut the tape in it and it comes off. I've also used these in combination with the big one there to hold. I had a guest in Rogers Pass who had Dynafit bindings, and the little U-shaped clip that holds his heel piece popped off into the snow, disappeared. And we're coming down from Pearly Rock. We had a lot of steep, tight trees to ski through, and we were able to just basically put a couple of these straps together to be able to go around his boot and secure it to the binding and be able to kind of get him down and out of there. I also carry, this is just over mitts, and so again I find quite often people, their hands get cold, and being able to just put their existing gloves or mitts inside of this will again it doesn't breathe that well, so it kind of traps the humidity in there, keeps the wind off, so I carry a pair of those. I have this is in addition to the other cord that I carry so that I can drag someone in my tarp if they're all needing to be evacuated. And I carry extra batteries, AA's and AAA for headlamps or transceivers. This is beeswax fire starter. I always carry some hand warmers, chemical hand warmers. They can even go underneath the armpits. I talked about how you lose heat from that area. I carry binding screws and Healy coils if someone had a binding rip out. I carry a little bit of gobstopper wax. I'll carry more of this in the spring when I'm expecting the skins to get quite moist and have trouble with drier snow in the sheltered areas sticking to the moist base of your skin. I've got a little ratchet with posi drive head and a Phillips driver to be able to deal with remounting bindings if necessary. Extra duct tape in addition to what I carry in my ski poles. That's always important for a number of things. I carry an extra basket and skin cutters. I find sometimes people need their skins adjusted. I carry some ladder lock straps. These are great for splinting. And some flagging tape. This is to sort of deal with holes in down jackets or that sort of thing. Tent tape. Some wire, some zip ties, all light things but quite handy. And I carry a full-on torch lighter as well. If you're trying to make a fire and you're finding things are damp, it's kind of nice to have that sort of power. Now, additionally, if I was going to be on a glacier, I'm going to have, this is a very lightweight harness and glacier kit I have in here. And if I was going to carry, these are boot crampons or ski crampons, I would need a bit more room to be able to carry this stuff. And so what I would do is use an external mount to hold my helmet on the outside of my pack, and then I can put something inside of the crampons on the inside of the helmets, and that frees up a lot of space in my pack as well. On quite cold days, in addition to the thermarest, you might want to think about carrying, this is just a Western Mountaineering +2 down bag, that sleeping bag, that again would be a godsend if someone was injured, to keep them from getting hypothermic, to be able to put them inside of this. And again, if you have other people in the group that can carry these things, it's not that big a deal. This is, pack's actually even smaller than it is and quite light. And if you're in a very remote area, you may want to think even about a lightweight pot set and stove. So this is just a titanium pot that has a little pocket rocket stove, very light. These are like 85 grams. and a little canister of fuel. So yeah, those are basically the things that I carry with me on a ski tour, and how to pack them and the importance of all that. So I think we can move on to some questions. Okay, great, thank you. Would you recommend a satellite communication device for non-technical multi-day hikes? So again, it just depends on what you have for communications already, in terms of, you know, are you in cell reception, or is it easy enough to be able to get a cell signal? Then a cell phone may be all you need. But I would say anytime you're in the mountains doing anything, I mean, hiking maybe seems less dangerous. You don't have avalanche hazard, you don't have crevasse hazard, but still hundreds of people get injured hiking. And Parks does an awful lot of rescues for hikers. And so, yes, I definitely would recommend having a satellite communication device for even hiking if you're in an area where you have no other means of communication. Yeah.
One more. Shovel and probe.
Oh, I didn't even get to the shovel and probe. One of the great things about this pack is that it has an external pocket to put those things into, and you really don't want to put anything in this pocket other than the things that are going to get snowy and that you want quick and easy access to. Now, one of the things that I do put in here is my skins, and so there are my skins. Again, you know, I'm putting them in and out of my pack all day, so I want to be able to do that quick and easy, part of the whole efficiency thing. And I have the shovel blade then just sort of, you know, sits quite flush. This is the Backcountry Access RS EXT for extendable, and this shovel, this is my favorite shovel, partly because it turns into a hoe. So it's got a nice flat back for being able to dig profiles. It's extendable, and it has a little handle at the top here. So this thing moves an awful lot of snow very quickly, and yet it's not that heavy, and it's sturdy. The BCA is excellent with their welding jobs, so the likelihood of breaking this is very low. And so I've got my shovel in here, and then I wanted to talk about this pack actually has, when you buy it stock from Patagonia, you can see this little tab here. They've got a couple of little bungees that are connected to two tabs, and the idea, I suppose, is that you stick your shovel handle and your probe inside those bungees. But I always carry a saw with me, and so I have sewn a little strap that gives me 3 places to slide things. So the shovel handle was in one. I carry a saw in the other one, which this is the BCA, sorry, this is the G3 bone saw, which I like because it has a built-in crystal screen, so I don't have to carry that in addition. It cuts wood and snow, which is very important. So if you needed to cut wood for fire, to make a fire, to build a shelter, for splinting material if someone broke a leg or something, being able to cut wood is really important. To be able to cut small trees around to make a clearing for a helicopter to land in the event of a rescue, and of course being able to build snow shelters and for snow study. So I just always carry a saw with me. And a lot of people, of course, when you buy your probe, it comes in a case like this. I don't recommend carrying the case around with you. It's just one extra step to be able to get at your probe. So I just have this go straight into that compartment, and I can get at this very quickly and easily. Usually it's for measuring snow depths. You have never actually had to probe a buried person under the snow, but for probing, I use it quite often. So I like to have that quick, easy access to it. And another thing that I haven't mentioned yet here is that I will often, most packs will have an internal place. This is a spot where you could put a bladder system if you're using that in this pack. What I put in here is my SAM splint, or whatever other like coroplast splinting material you wanted to sort of put in there. So that's kind of another handy use for that. But yeah, thanks for reminding me. I almost kind of forgot about the Avi tools in the back there. Any other questions? No.
Next week.
So tune in next week, same bat time, same bat channel, 2 o'clock Wednesday, and we're going to have Barry Blanchard back here, who will be interviewing Charing Sherpa, who is another one of the Muskoka Corps guides, who is a Nepalese mountain guide, and he is going to talk about guiding in Nepal. He's been at Everest a number of times. It'll be very interesting. So, see you there. Thank you.